All right, I'd like to welcome everybody officially to our Pivoting Your Business during COVID-19. We have some great speakers, and so to have them be introduced by our moderator today, I'd like to introduce Geoff Green, the CEO of the Santa Barbara City College Foundation.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. Welcome, everyone. We are this is our second of a series of webinars from the Santa Barbara Chamber. What we're hoping to do is just give people some resources and some connections to fellow business folks in the community as we all navigate this together. The idea is to share knowledge, to share tips, and of course, we have time and the space to have a conversation as well. What we ask you to do is if you have a question, something you'd like discussed or addressed, please feel free to text it and or put it into the chat box, and I'll make sure that gets posed to our panelists today. So we all are dealing with the same experiment in real time at this moment, and that is, of course, what do you do when suddenly everything that was normal, that your environment that you operate your business in changes? And we've seen all kinds of things happen in the last few weeks. I think this has been a time of great experimentation out of necessity, certainly. But there have been some really good other resources introduced into the mix. There have been some very creative responses from some of our business community. And so today we wanted to feature two members of our business community who have something to offer on this subject about pivoting your business in a time of crisis. In this case, the COVID-19 crisis. And of course, we're talking not only about the health crisis and the pandemic, but we're talking about the economic crisis that follows because of the shutdown and distancing that we're all required and for good reason to participate in at this moment. So what we want to do today is have a few minutes for each of our panelists to say a few words, and then we'll just start a conversation, and I'll bring your questions to them, and we'll just go from there. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you our two panelists for the day. We have Catherine G. Many of you know Catherine. She is a designer, a fashion designer and artist based right here in Santa Barbara. She launched CG Designs, I believe, in 2015, if I did my homework right, Catherine. And she not only has a real brick and mortar store, and some of you may well have been there, but she has quite a robust online business as well. So we're going to hear from her a bit about what she has done to adapt in this last month. And we also have with us Nicki Parr. And Nicki is with the Women's Economic Ventures, which many of you now know so well. She's the Associate Director for Strategic Initiatives. And she actually joined Weave at a time of another recovery of a crisis. In fact, that's when she and I connected after the Thomas Fire and debris flow. And so she certainly is a point person for Weave in what they're offering to the community of business owners with regard to resources and how to navigate a time like this. So we're very happy to have you both. Thank you both for joining us today. And so we'll start it by tossing it off to Nicki here to share a bit about what she's seeing and what resources may in fact be out there for business owners at a time like this.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And thanks for Stephanie for inviting us on. I guess I want to start by just emphasizing the importance of community at this time. And, I think we're really good at that in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. Weave, as an organization, extends to both counties. And we make a real point of trying to create community amongst small business owners. And at a time like this, it's really important to find your community and to explore the support that's available to you within that. So to that extent, Weave was very quick in setting up a telephone response line that people could call in and be connected to an advisor within one business day to speak to about their concerns. We also have a resource page up on our website that has all the relevant information about the government relief efforts, filing for unemployment, any grant programs that we're aware of, and just general kind of tips and hints as to what you can be doing as a business owner right now, especially around finances and trying to kind of batten down the expenses that you're facing. In addition, we've also implemented a series of weekly workshops, online, webinars. Weave Works. We've kind of created all these new taglines, and I'll mention that we've pivoted as well. That was one of our taglines because we took all of our course teachings, which were in person, we took them all online within a matter of days. So we had to make a very quick pivot ourselves. And we're very familiar with, you know, the necessity of needing to make a change in order to stay current and relevant to clients. So we have some experience with that ourselves, but you know, I just want to encourage everybody to reach out to us and to check out our COVID webpage. You know, there is a lot of resources up there and lots of good ideas, and just, you know, just feeling like that there are other people out there that can support you in what you're going through as a business.
Great. Thank you, Nicki. Catherine, can you maybe share with us a little bit about your, well, first share about your business model and how it works in quote unquote normal times, and then maybe what you had to think through as you navigated this last few weeks.
Absolutely. Nicki, first I want to say I'm a Weave graduate, so thanks for all that you do.
That's great.
Catherine G, I have a women's brand based here in Santa Barbara, and we produce in Los Angeles, China, and Peru. I sell the clothes to about 90 stores across the nation, so that's really a big part of the business. However, we do have a brick and mortar here on Haley Street, and we do sell some online. So once COVID really hit the US about March 13th, I think that Friday, I started looking and thinking about my resources and what I could do. So the mask implementation wasn't set then, and I started thinking about, you know, who I knew in the community, and our literal neighbor, Grant House, is a block away. So I called him and said I wanted to donate at first 400 yards of fabric, and we started making masks. And all these masks are being donated for free to Cottage Hospital and also community members. You can just go to Grant House and pick up some masks. So that was something that I felt was very important that I could do in this time. And as far as, you know, the brick and mortar and fashion industry right now, we're all shut down. So I'm just sitting here kind of re-strategizing how we reach our consumers and how to be very sensitive with, you know, pushing product, because this isn't really a time that people need silk shirts. However, we're just being very mindful and connecting more with our clients.
Right. Thank you. So while we have you there, Catherine, what can you say a little bit about the relative importance of the online business? You obviously have quite a distribution chain if you're selling to 90 stores, but how did you make the decisions about what the role of that part of your business needed to be when everything changed?
Oh, when everything changes?
Yes.
Well, I mean, it made me think as a designer and as a practical human, what are our basics? What do we need, right? You know, we have our basic needs, and clothing is one of them. And I immediately got into the kind of psychology of consumers and during this time. And so everyone, you know, wants to be comfortable. And so I thought about, in moving forward, what I offer, what it will look like, probably paring down quite a bit, but keeping around, you know, the core styles that sell, but also just kind of navigating day by day what's happening to the global economy, but specifically the fashion industry.
Mm-hmm. Nicki, are you finding when folks approach Weave these days, the questions obviously are probably starting with emergency survival questions, I'd imagine. But beyond that, are you starting to have people engage with you about actually shifting their models more permanently based on what these first few weeks have meant for them?
I think it's probably a little early to make that call. I think you're right. We're definitely in what I'd call response phase. You know, from sort of disaster terminology. The initial period of sort of the frenzy to kind of survive in some ways as a business. We're slowly moving into what I'd see as more of the recovery phase, where people are looking a little bit more further out. You know, we're in this for a little while, and to make, you know, to kind of not wish it all away, but to actually start making some changes that have some legs and some grounded in something meaningful. In terms of sort of whether that sticks in the long term, I think I heard a great quote last week that says, stop wishing, that we could go back to normal. This is the new normal. And I think the sooner that businesses can accept that we are in a different period now, and, whether it lasts for a year and a half or 6 months, to accept that as a reality. And so I think to put the efforts into the new tactics that they're trying. And I think some things will, I hope it will. I mean, it's revenue diversification, really, at its root. So that all businesses need to be, taking that on. It will make you stronger in the long term.
Right. Catherine, have you, in your brick and mortar, do you have employees that you had to discuss their immediate futures with?
Yes.
And what was your approach when this all started with the employees you had?
Well, my approach, I had to slash hours. So a full-time employee went down to part-time, temporarily throughout this. So, I was just very mindful, and just said, the next 2 months until the economy opens back up.
And you were able to keep them on, it sounds like.
Yes.
Did it entail a big shift in what the work looked like, or the actual roles that you needed from your?
It shifted a bit, but in a positive manner. This particular employee is very knowledgeable in digital marketing, and so she does all of our e-blasts, the constant contacts, the Instagram stories, the posts. So we're together creating content to send to our guest book for the boutique. So our clients who do are loyal, and I mean, surprisingly, we've sold quite a bit just offering curbside assistance and delivery. So it was a good transition for now. And it's the constant communication with her every day, and just staying positive and finding unique ways to interact with our clients as well.
From afar, right. So now you outed yourself as a Weave graduate. So I have to ask you, since we've got Nicki on the call too, can you say a few things about the value of that? And I don't know which parts of the program you may have experienced, but I'd love to hear how valuable that was to you as you launched your business.
Absolutely. I'll give you a little history on myself before Weave. I was the executive director of the
Please.
So essentially I was running a small business. I know how to write grants, which has come in handy right now, currently. So yeah, I always had the idea of this line, this collection, and started working on it years and years ago. And one of my friends had graduated from Weave, and he has a very successful business. So I went in, I talked to them, and I enrolled. Julie was my teacher. She was excellent. And the value I got out of it, I had a full realized business plan at the end of the course. And it's really, I look at it often. It served as kind of like the jumping point and the bones of what I thought, like who I thought my demographic would be. It's changed quite a bit, but it was really, the first document that kind of laid out the structure of this business.
That's great. Did they have a class on pandemics and how to pivot your business when everything shuts down? No, that wasn't a thing.
Not yet.
Nicki, can you talk a little bit about what those offerings are and how they might help someone in a time like this? I know Weave does a tremendous number of things, and of course is in a transition of its own from its founding CEO to a new CEO.
Yeah, and we're definitely in a lot of transition right now. As I said, our sort of flagship program is the Smart Entrepreneurial Training Program, which is what Catherine's referring to. It's a 14-week in-person, or let me say, it was a 14-week in-person program, 3 hours a week. You've got a cohort of maybe 20 that are going through the program together, and you really do, you write your business plan from beginning to end, and we're not sure how we're going to move that forward. I think we need to acknowledge the while, you know, we were able to do it online, but, you know, it's, what is the business going to look like in the future? Is this, you know, is this going to be a sustainable way of teaching? And so we're definitely reevaluating that. We're always going to be responding to what our clients want to be taught, and how they can make their businesses stronger. So we're really looking at focusing on, you know, financial resilience, and things like how to evolve your business. So, you know, pivot, you know, the pivoting piece is huge. Social media marketing is huge. You know, all those things that will just make a business stronger in the future. And that was, you know, what I was doing in the last couple of years, was really focusing on this resilience piece. So even though, you know, we don't have a segment on pandemics, we certainly had incorporated business resilience and financial resilience as a sort of core aspect of what we were focusing on as an organization. Definitely, you know, by necessity, we'll have to do that. I think in the sort of immediate 6 to 9 months, you know, we will continue to offer programming online and in person when we can. But we're really going to be ramping up our advisory as well, because we're anticipating that small business owners will want to, you know, come back to that business plan and really look at it and reevaluate whether this still has relevance for them, and perhaps tweak it in certain places and put in place some stronger financial practices. So that we're hoping to bring on fairly quickly, either for free or extremely low cost, because, you know, we recognize, and actually the government recognizes the importance of that in the coming months.
So what are your biggest concerns right now? I mean, we're a month in to the current moment. People have had a little bit of time to figure out what they need to do to survive the immediate shock. But when you look ahead, what are your biggest concerns for your business partners and clients, and you know, maybe the community as a whole? But what are you most concerned about?
I think, you know, the cash, not having enough cash flow is sort of what we're hearing loud and clear. And you know, if there's going to be this sort of phased reopening, at what point is a business going to be earning enough to, you know, start to recoup some of the lost revenue, and also to start to pay back if they've had to go into debt? So there's going to definitely be a cash crunch, and, you know, the cost to reopen. You know, for a restaurant, if you imagine the inventory that was potentially lost to them when they had to close, you know, just going out there and kind of restocking and getting ready to reopen is definitely going to be an issue. But you know, as I said, we do want to have advisory services open to people, that they can at least start to plan and anticipate this. And you know, I think just patience, which is really hard, you know, because you want to be getting back up and running again. But I feel like if we can have a reality check of, you know, this may last longer than we thought, and the partial reopenings may bring in more revenue, and you know, if you set your expectations low, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
How about you, Catherine? I mean, a month in, you've clearly had some success in adjusting your, you know, working out with your employees a new plan to bridge through these next couple of months. You use the tools you have with your social media and internet connections and your list. What are your biggest concerns right now as you look ahead?
For me, because so much of our business is wholesale, so selling to other boutiques across the country, I think for me, the number one is the sustainability of the fashion industry itself. And literally looking at it from the macro level down. So, you know, Saks Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, they're all closed. All the boutiques are closed. And so for me, it's looking at the markdowns of brands. And once they're made at that level, all the boutiques have to, so all the small business owners. So I guess my biggest challenge and concern with my buyers is, you know, as this continues and when the economy opens back up, how many will survive? Yeah,
right.
we survive. So that's it.
Certainly. All right, so we went down the dark road. Maybe I have to and ask you the flip side of that, and that is really what I mean. We've heard a lot of people talk, and I've found myself saying it myself as well. That there will be this wave of innovation that comes out of this. That 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, "Gosh, you realize, that was really born out of the necessity of the pandemic and surviving that bizarre time." Um, what are your highest hopes? And what do you think is being learned, or what are you learning that you think is going to be valuable going forward, even when we return to the new normal? Maybe I'll throw that back to you, Catherine, since we just made you go down the dark
Yeah.
road of markdowns.
I'll kind of go back to like practicality. I think that people are going to really like look at their lifestyle choices and pare down. And so for me, like in pivoting, even with making the mask, like serving a need, like a real need in the community was critical. Yeah, I think that businesses have to look at it from a practical point of view and how we can offer the same service and quality, but at a lower, like a lesser form. So, yeah.
Right. All right. How about you, Nicki? What's the bright spot in all this? What do you see being created or experimented with that you think will be a good thing in the long run?
Yeah, I think I'd echo Catherine's comments there. There's some irony in that when we're all forced to stay at home, we become more in need of community and in need of sort of connection. And I think the businesses that are really recognizing the value of customer relationship, when Catherine was, talking about how she's doing a lot of Instagram posts and reaching out to her clients very directly, the businesses that are really fostering those personal relationships are doing well. And I think, being of service to your community is it's a win-win. And again, businesses that can kind of bring that into their model and just become more mindful and connected to those around them, I think is a real positive.
When you look around, I mean, this is such a closely connected community, and we all, I mean, back in the old world, we all saw each other a lot, and out in the community at events, and working together in different ways. Do you think this helps that in the long run, hurts that, has an effect? You mentioned community being an important part of it. Do you see this experience bringing people together in the long run?
I hope so. I don't know. I anticipate that it's going to be we're going to be a bit cautious, aren't we, when we go out there anew? But I have to confess, I walked through the farmers market on Tuesday, and it was great to see some familiar faces, even if it was from far away. So yeah, I think whenever a community goes through a difficult period, it connects them at a deeper level. And I think we both can speak to that from working together on the Montecito event after the debris flow, and the community's become tighter. We've all kind of survived this. So.
Are you seeing that, Catherine? Are you seeing people reach out to you? I know you're reaching out certainly to connect with your customer base. Have you been reached out to? Have folks checked in and see if there's anything they could do to support you and your business during this moment?
Absolutely. There's a small community of designers, Sonia of Soda Mill Swim, Rosha Swim, Danielle. So I've literally picked up the phone and called Sonia many times and checked in with her and her production. But as far as community, yeah, I have some great stories. We sent out a blast on the mask making, and that was the most response I've ever seen from any e-blast. About 25 women responded, and it was great. And we're continuing to make the content, more interactive and uplifting. We just had a former, the director of press for Obama's administration in our outfit. And so we're making a blast around that. Just, very mindful. It's very bright, and I think it sends a subtle message to get out and vote too. So little things, but I think looking at, all the emails that are coming through from brands and companies, we are all in this together. I'm just trying to be a little under the surface about it and just more interactive. We have an e-blast going out that's a profile on me and my favorite businesses in town. So that's really cool to support other businesses that way.
That's great. Well, we've certainly seen a lot of that, and I know a lot of our media partners, the local media, have really covered that well. In fact, I was saying to Stephanie, I just saw the piece about your work and your mask making. I think it was in the Montecito Journal this last issue, so that was great to see. And certainly Weave has gotten a lot of good positive attention as a key resource throughout this. So maybe I can turn, and I'm still watching. I don't see other questions coming through, so I'm going to warn you, I can just go for an hour if we have to. But I'm curious, the other thing that a lot of people have been very, very concerned about, in addition to the baseline employment question and what it means structurally for the not only the economy writ large, but our individual communities, is the property side of it. Because of course, we've now got a massive group of individuals who can either no longer pay their mortgage or their rent. And of course, that goes to small business as well. And if they don't own the space they're in, then they have to have that same negotiation with landlords. And I'm wondering if, and for Catherine, if you want to speak personally or just generally to what you're seeing, how are people being creative about making that work when we have this period of shutdown? And Nicki, afterwards, I'll maybe ask you to say what you're seeing from a macro level about that. But we know that that's a big one. So have you, either your experience or have you seen that with colleagues?
I've seen it with colleagues, and me personally. I have a really good landlord, and we're just, I'll be honest, we're only paying triple net through this period. So that was really nice, just considering, cash flow is very minimal.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I've talked to other people, other business owners, and I haven't really heard too much.
How about you, Nicki? Is that something that people bring to you at this point about how they navigate or negotiate with an existing property owner where their business may be located?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, because we're at mid-month point now, but it was something that, a couple of weeks ago we were hearing a lot as people were approaching their April rent payment. Mm-hmm. And I guess what's surprising is the differences in landlords. You have some landlords like Catherine's that are totally on board and will just charge triple net during this process. And then you have other landlords that say, no, we're not giving you a cent. And if you don't pay, then we'll take out a judgment against you. And that kind of mindset is challenging. So it's the lack of consistency, I think, that's really tough. We advocate being proactive, being transparent, really, communicating clearly with your landlord about what you can and can't do, and trying to do so in a timely way. But, on the flip side, if you've got a landlord that really won't even pick up the phone and respond to your call, then you're in a very challenging place. And, where does a tenant go for that kind of advocacy at that point?
So this is all, the stressors like this, we all know they force people in the moment to try new things, to make adjustments. And it's, as you both had said, it's really about survival initially and making sure that you can continue to execute your craft and keep your business alive and do what you do. But over time, I wonder whether there are things that you see that might actually stick after this is all over in the way of new partnerships, new business philosophies. I know, Catherine, you talked about the connection with community and some of those things being forefronted at a time like this. Do either of you see something emerging either in your own business or as you look out in your larger business community that what may have started as a pivot for survival is going to become a new strategy that actually lasts beyond this, no matter what the new normal looks like?
I'll speak on this.
Catherine, great.
Definitely see what we're doing, Zoom, largely being utilized in the future, specifically for my industry. Trade shows. So we have to go to trade shows to sell to buyers. And the biggest markets are in New York City at the Javits Center, and also Los Angeles, which are two of the biggest hotspot cities. So for me, just like navigating the next year, looking at the fashion calendar, our next wholesale market is in September, and I don't see many buyers showing up, or even if there will be a trade show. So I have talked to some industry experts who are working on platforms, online platforms, for brands to upload new imagery, and buyers will be shopping that way. So I definitely see more online platforms in my industry, at least in the next year or so.
All right, now I'm going to show my ignorance here for a minute because I want to ask about this. I know very little about the fashion industry, but when I picture what a trade show in any field looks like, or in the case of fashion, a fashion show, do you see those going forward in a remote sense, meaning that you would still have someone organizing the show in a real space in real time, but as opposed to people coming to it and being there in person, that's something that would be then broadcast out over the internet? Is that the kind of remote platform you're envisioning?
Yeah, basically, yeah, a platform where brands can submit their imagery for a new collection. And so buyers would then go to the platform, go to the website, and shop that way instead of physically going to a trade show. In the next year, it's being discussed right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Right. Nicki, what about you? Are you seeing things from where you sit that might just stick beyond this, that started as pivots and become good best practice in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, again, alluding to what Catherine's saying, the way that technology has become almost I mean, not quite seamless, but much more seamless than I think we had anticipated. You know, we're able to work around quite a lot and still, you know, have some semblance of a human connection. And I think that's been a really welcome surprise. And, you know, within Weave, and it sounds like within Catherine's business, but, you know, even with, you know, like a hairstylist who can't cut hair right now, but is still able to get on a Zoom call and, you know, talk to their clients about a certain style, or, you know, still to have some sort of consultation. I mean, I think that when you're forced to do these things, you just, oh my God, I didn't realize that was a possible way of doing business. So I think it is pretty cool being able to explore all these other ways of doing business that no one would have conceived of, you know, 2 months ago.
Katie, who I see is on here with us, Grassini, just said, personally, I hope that the to-go cocktail pivot that the alcohol, the ABC has let restaurants do really sticks around. So we may see some pivots like that. And actually, to that point, I was thinking about tasting rooms. As a wine hobbyist myself, I was thinking about things that, well, haircuts, obviously not my problem, but things that you kind of have to do in person to some extent, and the innovative ways that people have at least temporarily managed to get around that. But Catherine, I imagine the fashion industry, you know, there's various parts of that system that just have to be in person, don't they? At some level?
Honestly, yes. Buyers like to touch it. They like to feel it. And yeah, it's very odd. Continuing what I do every day and reaching out to buyers little by little, and just working off of imagery, because so much of my line it's silk, it's the feel. And yeah, I mean, nothing. I have sales reps in New York and LA, but I always go to the trade shows myself, and I sell the most. And it's that tactile, face-to-face experience. So yeah, it's really odd in thinking about how we'll return as an industry in the future.
Yeah, I think we're going to learn what has to be done in person and what doesn't. What about you, Nicki? I mean, there's some industries, I imagine you touched virtually every sector with the Weave work. Are you seeing certain places be more comfortable in that pivot to the remote work? I mean, obviously some lend themselves more naturally to it, and others must be incredibly challenged by it.
Yeah, it definitely varies with what you're doing as an industry. I mean, some of the surprising ones, you know, like an exercise, a yoga class or something, or a dance class, I've seen those really successfully going online. It's amazing.
Who thought that Zoom on Zumba would be a normal?
Right. And then, there's a lot of opportunity for innovation, and I think that's the piece where business owners can focus. You can get dragged down by what's going on around us, but I think to get creative about your business again and come up with some new ideas, and talk to other business owners and talk to peers and colleagues about it. I was just trying to think of some other good examples that we've seen. I mean, the catering business is an interesting one. All large events being cancelled, and that was one of the first businesses that we spoke to. Actually, it was a large catering organisation that just saw their contracts evaporating, and that business very quickly pivoted to home delivery of meals, and from that it pivoted to something else, which was delivery of meals to a large organisation that was an essential service. So you just never know where it's going to lead. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could speak on. I'm sorry, Jason.
Oh, mute.
Missed that. Who was that? One of our guests on there?
Now you can.
Jason.
So, sorry, I apologize. I was a little late to the meeting. I was on the phone actually with EDC, asking a whole bunch of questions and getting a whole bunch of great answers. I can speak to the catering, question or comment. My wife and I were on the food liaison in Carpinteria, and we have both a catering business, a catering company, and a restaurant. We also do cooking classes. Of course, the cooking classes have stopped. The catering business is 80% of our income. That's pretty much died. However, one of the interesting things that, I don't know if it's really a pivot or not, but what we found is some of our clients, many of our clients are of the cannabis industry here in Carpinteria. And so they have, hundreds of employees who are still working to make sure that their product doesn't go, get rotten. And they have a program that they've started called Keep the Lights On. And so they've reached out to several caterers and restaurants here in the area to provide meals, basically stack lunches to their employees. But stack lunch is not just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and an apple, but specific to the type of menu that each restaurant is known for. So one of the interesting things that I've seen of that is typically that demographic that is in the agricultural industry is not our clientele. The majority of our catering contracts that we have are for a lot of tech companies and completely different demographic. So it's been interesting seeing that different people are getting in bed now by their employers than what it used to be. And I appreciate both. There's nothing wrong with either one. But I think it's been interesting seeing the appreciation for the, I don't want to say appreciation or recognition because that's always happens regardless, but how they're being these ways figured out to help another business by helping their own business in a way, and providing somebody who might not have ever had lunch bought for them by their employer, brought to their workplace for them to eat, which is helping, serving two positives. So that's been really cool. Otherwise, the majority of our catering businesses, is not there. It would be because of those cannabis industry, farmers here in the area. But our restaurant business is doing pretty good. Luckily, one of the things that we were ready for this, not knowing that we were ready for it, or not knowing that we were going to need it, was we had an online ordering portal kind of set up and ready to go. I wanted to test that for several weeks and worked out all the kinks before we launched it live or made it available to the public. But then coronavirus happened and we didn't have much choice to test it. So luckily we just had a few hitches in that situation, but it's been largely successful. And it's helped us a lot, easing people's fear of social distancing and having to work online. It's something that, of course, will continue into the travel since coronavirus ends. But you know, thank God we had that ready to go, because it would have, you know, it definitely would have had a difference on the numbers if we did.
Yeah, well, that's two. Thank you, Jason, for that. I mean, two interesting points there. One is that something that you may have already been working on that you were sort of forced to launch prematurely, but it actually works, and it's a great time to see that. But your prior point, I've noticed there's a few cases where, not just a few actually, I've seen a lot of larger businesses who have the capacity want to not only do something for their own employees, as you were mentioning, but do it with a small business, somebody they know locally, you know, a partner whose other business may have gone away or at least temporarily declined steeply. So that's been an interesting thing to watch, and it's not really charity. I mean, it's something that people are doing for each other, but they're certainly looking through the lens of community at least to try to make those things happen, and that's been fascinating. So thank you for that. So there's a couple of questions here in the chat box, and then we'll definitely give our panelists a chance to wrap up. But this for you, Catherine, you know, given what you said about, I mean, that your business is a tactile business. You've got to be there in person. You've got to touch the fabric. When you are doing things like, you know, curbside pickup or other kinds of things for clients, how do you help someone buy from a boutique if they can't come in and touch everything, which I assume you're not letting people do right now?
No, I'm not. Well, here's a great story too. Marcus is a retail boutique in Montecito next to Trey Loon, one of our stockists, and a realtor emailed me, just sent it to our info at Catherine G, and said, I discovered your brand in Marcus, and then I saw your store driving down Haley Street, and I saw this black and white striped blouse in the window. I love it. How can I buy it? So I directed her to the website. I showed her which blouse it was. She bought it, and she picked it up the next day. We're getting little, like, whether it's, you know, via email, I've gotten some through Instagram, just inquiries as to, do you have this in stock? And I always lead them to the website. So that's essentially how. I think that you have to guide, handhold a lot of consumers sometimes, or inform them in the right way. So we're just we're responding to any like emails, any inquiries via Facebook or Instagram, and it's working out well.
Great. Well, before we sign off here, I do want to give you each a chance to give any parting words of wisdom or questions, frankly, you know, whatever you'd like to share. Again, the idea here is talking through how you pivot in a moment like this when you're essentially forced to, and what businesses are doing. So, do I have a volunteer for final words of wisdom to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, Catherine, great.
So my store is part of the mill. We have the brewery next to us and Potek Winery. And it's really inspiring for me to continue to come in here by myself every day and see them making beer and, you know, seeding the grapes. You just have to continue to be creative and make and design and produce. And, you know, like I said earlier, kind of like streamline what you're already doing. So I'm in here designing every day, but, you know, making the collections smaller and a little bit more practical. And as far as, you know, getting through this time, again, it's all about pivoting and understanding like what works really well in your business and really honing in and fine tuning that, but also to not constantly, but to reach out to your consumers, to reach out to your buyers, and to reach out to your whole supply chain and understand how you can work together. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Nicki.
I'm looking forward to Catherine's quarantine collection because there's silk pajamas. There must be silk pajamas in there somewhere, and looking forward to that. I mean, I think I would just echo, you know, the need to use this time to really focus on your customer and vendor relationships. You know, that's a great place to start. If you're stuck with what should I be doing, do something of service in your community. You know, start there. Look where the need is, and how can you be of assistance there? Where can you create value? And if you know, there's a lot of talk about pivoting, and people can put a lot of pressure on themselves. Like, I have to do something different. You know, if you can't think of anything yet, then just reevaluate, why did you start your business in the first place? You know, what was your original intention? What was your original passion? And just start there, and ask yourself, is it still relevant now? Is there a way to adapt it? And just to really stay positive and stay connected, and communicating. And I'll just plug the WeaveWorks webinar from yesterday. Was about how to take your business online quickly. And that webinar is up on our COVID webpage, and has lots of great ideas. And we'll be doing a couple more on kind of online and e-commerce in the coming weeks. So if this is an area that you're kind of not familiar with, then check our web pages, because we'll be hoping to educate small business owners that way.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nicki. Well, thank you, both of you. So thank you, Catherine G., Nicki Parr. This was really insightful. It's something that we are trying to do with the Chamber more, is to have voices from the community, from our business community, actually share their real life experience. And we really appreciate what you both do, what you're doing both for the community, as well as to see your respective organizations thrive through this. So thank you very much. I'm going to pass it back to Stephanie now.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Geoff, for moderating the discussion, and thank you, Nicki and Catherine, for being a part of this conversation. And I'm just really grateful for you being able to share in your experience. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how we as a community will be navigating the next several weeks and months. Also, just as a highlight, we are doing another webinar series for a meet and greet with Jason Harris next Tuesday, and the link has been circulated through our email blast. I hope that everyone will look to join us for next Tuesday at 11 a.m. And again, just deep appreciation and thank you both for everything that you're doing. And thank you again, Geoff, for moderating today's discussion. And I hope that I look forward to seeing you guys all very soon.
In real life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.